Welcome to the Winning Platform Owner Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to enabling ServiceNow platform owners with valuable knowledge, tools, and strategies. As a ServiceNow platform owner, if you're not leveraging an OCM capability either on your team or in your organization, then you are missing a key tool in your toolbox for delivering business value on the ServiceNow platform. I recently had the privilege of sitting down with an incredibly skilled OCM practitioner to talk about what OCM is, why it matters, and what we can do as platform owners to do OCM really well. I have to tell you, I was excited to record a show with Viv Philips, but I'm even more excited to share the content with you after recording our conversation. There was so much good content that I couldn't squeeze it into just one episode. So this is part one of organizational change management for the platform owner. So if you're ready to talk OCM for the winning platform owner, then let's go. So welcome to the show, Viv. It's good to have you here. Good to have you on the Winning Platform Owner podcast. You've got a lot of experience and background that I know that our listeners will be able to take advantage of, and a lot of advice that I think will be really useful for our audience of platform owners. And so why don't we take a minute first to just kind of talk about Viv the person, right? We're all people first. And so tell us about Viv, and then tell us maybe about your professional background as we get into this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben. So hello, everybody. My name is Viv Philips. Full name Vivian, but I go by Viv. That's what everybody refers to me as. It's I always say it's easy to remember. You can't spell it wrong whether you do it forwards or backwards.
There you go.
Viv. As a person, I am married. We live in Texas, east side of Dallas. I have 3 very energetic puppies. They're really not puppies anymore, but they'll always be puppies in my in my life.
They're always your babies, right?
They're always my babies, yes. They are Louisiana Catahoula. They're hunting dogs, so if that just tells you anything, the level of energy that they have. Yeah, so we've been in Texas since 2005. I'm originally from the East Coast, but I really do like being out here in Texas. It's a great state. Dallas is a little bit more traffic than I would like, but that's okay. I work from home, so I don't really have to deal with it too much.
That works.
We do a lot of outdoor things, fishing, gardening, yard work, that kind of stuff. No kids, couple step kids. My kids are my fur babies. That's for sure. They get spoiled as such. From a professional standpoint, I am a business process consultant. That's my official title. Work at Crossviews, where we are a ServiceNow partner. And I like to say journey partner, right? We help our clients through their transformation with ServiceNow. So as a business process consultant, I'm really focused on the process side. But my passion really lies in the organizational change management, training and development. I've been doing this type of work since about 2011. And that role has just grown and expanded, as well as my knowledge and skill sets in this space. I worked on the corporate side for many years, switched over to the consultant role in 2020, and has been the best decision I think I've ever made. It's really allowed me to grow and expand and spread my wings, right? And really share the knowledge that I have around business process consulting, organizational change management, training, and development.
Yeah, and we've worked together for a little while. We've known each other for a little while, and I've gotten to see that firsthand. Just the passion for organizational change management and the power of it, really, right? If done well, boy, it's a game changer for platform owners who are trying to either do an initial implementation or take and enhance something on the platform or add another application, whatever it may be, you're gonna impact someone.
Right.
and sometimes you're impacting everyone. And organizational change management can be the game changer that really helps you succeed. So with that, let's maybe just kind of unpack it first. So from your perspective, what really is OCM? People may have just heard that term and they don't really understand what OCM is, or organizational change management. I remember the first time I heard the term organizational change management way back, right? I was in an ITSM shop and we thought they're going to take over change management. Is that what they're going to do? Couldn't have been further from what they were meaning, but we didn't know what it meant. So maybe we just start there and just talk about, well, what is organizational change management, OCM, that we're talking about?
That's a great point. And a lot of people make that same change, especially if they work in that IT space. Change management has a completely different meaning than organizational change management. So it's always good to make sure you don't forget the O in that whole that whole title, right? So
Yeah.
from my perspective, and people will describe it in different ways, but there is a similarity or a common thread that is usually part of that description. So for me, organizational change management, or OCM, as you'll hear it called a lot, is a framework for managing the effect of new business processes, new technology, or changes in an organization, in an organizational structure and a culture within an enterprise. More simply
Mm.
stated, OCM is a methodology to address the people side of change. Because people are the common denominator for achieving
Yes.
intended outcomes for any project or change. Just like you said, it's when you heard that as a person, that first terminology of organizational change management, you balked and
Yeah.
said, they're going to change management on us. Yeah, it's a natural response and reaction to any kind of change.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So the people side of change, and when you listed off process or technology, or you basically listed off the things that as a platform owner, um, those are the things that we're impacting, right? When we do something on the ServiceNow platform, which is incredibly powerful, it we're able to do transformative things. That means it's going to impact people. And so if
Always.
yeah, if they don't adopt it, and maybe that's kind of to the why it's important. I mean, um, I feel like maybe that adoption part is a super important part from a platform owner perspective, but maybe you could give your perspective just as a practitioner on the things that you see it, or the reasons that you see OCM being really important.
Yeah, there's many reasons. There's lots of why to that. Why
Hmm.
is it important? Why is OCM important? I'm going to start with some numbers first. I'm not a big numbers person, but for whatever reason, I do love statistics around organizational change management. And one of the statistics I want to share is actually comes from ProSci. And again, for those that haven't heard that terminology, ProSci, which is PROSCI, they themselves, ProSci, describes themselves as a global team of change fanatics and advocates focused on customer success. But truly, they are an organization that was founded way back in 1994, and they combine scientific principles and a focus on the people side of change and they maintain the largest body of change management knowledge. So they
Mm.
also offer training. They train change practitioners. I'm a ProSci change practitioner. I'm certified through ProSci. But one of their really most valuable statistics, and it's kind of has several numbers in it, they have found that 93% of projects with excellent change management, again, organizational change management, meet their objectives. That's 6 times greater than projects with poor or no change management at all.
Mm.
Their studies also found that 78% of projects with excellent change management were delivered on or below budget, and 69% of those projects with excellent change management were delivered on or ahead of schedule, which is 5 times greater than projects with poor or no change management. So it's an investment in your organization. When you invest in change management, it becomes an investment in your organization that helps save you money and time. So that's one side of the coin as from the project perspective. But remember, we talked about this being about the people side of change,
Yeah.
right? So what it does in that perspective is it leads to faster adoption, utilization, and proficiency of your end users. The end users is a broad term, could be anybody, could be fulfillers, could be employees, right? Because new change always brings about uncertainty, stress, risk. So OCM helps organizations to communicate the change effectively, provide support for employees as they transition to new ways of working. It helps to maintain employee engagement and morale. These things are just as critical to a program's success as achieving the project objectives, the statistics we talked about just a minute ago.
Yeah, to me, that kind of represents the long-term success, right? I mean, that 93% number, that's pretty impactful, right? If I'm sitting there going, hey, we talk a lot on this show about making sure things are strategically aligned, making sure we're doing the right work at the right time, things like that. Well, you could be doing all of that, and it still may not achieve what you wanted it to achieve, right? And so to me, that's where my mind went as you were going through those different statistics. It's that long-term achievement of the value, which does take investment.
Mm-hmm. Always. Yeah.
Well, so okay, so how what it is, why it's important, but really, like, how does it work? Because we can like wave around cool phrases in IT. We're really good at that, right? But when the rubber meets the road, like, how does OCM work for a
Right.
platform owner who's trying to make use of it?
Yeah. I'll start with kind of the high level, right? What you're doing or how it works is that you create an organizational plan and strategy and you deliver on that plan, right? You execute that plan. So you'll see there's variations in how you do this. How does it work across the top change models? ProSci being one of those, Cotter, Lewin. There's a couple of top names out there that offer these change models. But there's also some consistency across them. They may have a different naming convention, but what they're doing is essentially the same. So to break it down from my personal approach and what I employ, right, when I go into an engagement where I'm going to help deliver organizational change management, is I consider it building blocks. Each activity within the organizational change management plan builds on the previous activity. So in the end, you have all these pieces that help you create the OCM plan or the engagement strategy that will be used to communicate, engage, and support the right people at the right time with the right information or message. So breaking it down a little bit further, because that's kind of high level, you're answering some core questions, right? You begin with the what. It's defining the change, understanding what is the change. I mean, we talk about it's a new product or it's a new process, but what does that really mean?
But Viv, I'm just implementing ServiceNow.
Right, right. True. But what is changing and what is not changing is just as important, right? So understanding like kind of those differences as well as what does success look like and sound like? I mean, yeah, you're making a change, but how will you know you're successful? So that's kind of the high level, the what. Then you move into the who and start to dig in and identify the impacted people or the stakeholders. You know, everybody has a stakeholder analysis, not just for organizational change management, for projects in general, right? You capture how they're impacted, at what level they're impacted, how can they influence the change, what's some key messaging for that individual stakeholder group. Start to identify their with them, right? The what's in it for me. That's the only way you're going to get true buy-in from these folks is if you understand what matters to them, that individual that's impacted.
Is that just like those high level stakeholders? Are you talking about the end users?
Be
Um,
all, yeah, all of them.
all the different
It's
personas.
all
Yeah.
the different personas and even if it's just a minimal change to them, if they're impacted, you want to capture it, right? Because this, again, is a building block, identifying these individual people and how great is that impact to
Mm.
their worlds, right? To the way that they're engaged with whatever this change is that's coming will help you determine the next steps, the why and the how, right? You're going to formalize those messages that are critical to those individual stakeholders and identify the communication channels that are best suited to them, and also determine how often do you have to communicate with them. If it's changing their entire world, how they do their business day to day within that organization, you better believe they're a top priority and they need to get communications and education and engagement throughout the entire process. Whereas some other group, there may be very little impact and they may only need one or two simple messages to keep them aware of what's coming and how it's going to change their world. So
My
that,
guess,
yeah, go
sorry
ahead.
to interrupt you. I'm just thinking along with you, and what I was thinking of is my guess is that it matters kind of how on board people are too. Or
Hmm.
if you have a group that's just they're okay where they are and they don't want
Hmm.
to change, they don't want to use the application that we're putting out on the platform. Or I heard an example here recently of, they wanted to do kind of some of the more advanced asset management, and using mobile around that on the platform. And there was one stakeholder group that just didn't want to do it. And it kind of threw a wrench in everything for everyone. And so I assume that's what you're talking about as well, is
Yeah.
that kind of we're either on board or we're not.
Yeah, that's that level of resistance now, right? We have
Yeah.
this group of folks that are completely resistant to this change. So we need to rethink, how do we engage them? How do we get them involved? Because there's not success if they don't adopt it. Everybody else is going one way and they're still finding a workaround or using an old technology that doesn't align with the objectives of the organization. So
Mhm.
they're a group that you have identified as probably highly impacted, and why they're also resistant to the change. They're going to need some extra handholding and coddling to move them along and hopefully bring them on board, right? That's all part of those the who, right? And understanding what's important to them, why it's important to them, what are they afraid of losing? Maybe they just
Mm.
need to understand, what are they gaining, right? There's just, it's an art. It really is,
Yeah.
right? Dealing with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
kind of a lot of work, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
what you meant, I guess, by, hey, it's an investment.
Mm-hmm.
There's work around doing OCM really well
Yep.
and taking the time to do that. That makes sense. It's a little bit overwhelming when you think about it as in one big bucket. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
worth
that,
it, right?
yeah, that question you said, it's a lot of work. Yeah, it certainly is. But when you do it, as you said, where you're effective in building out those building blocks, right? And identifying all those pieces, because obviously that last piece becomes that when, right? That communication plan or engagement strategy that uses all of the previous data, pulls it into it, and then defines this plan on which you're going to execute this communication initiative, right? That's wrapped in this
Mhm.
OCM. It's a living document. It may change. That's perfectly okay. But even though this is a lot of work, it does become this library of collateral that can be repurposed for
Oh,
another
that makes
implementation
sense.
or another project, a new business change, a new technology, right? It's not a one and done activity. You set up a
Yeah.
framework of successes. You can even do some lessons learned at the end of it. This worked well, this didn't. How do we modify it and continue to grow this content to support upcoming engagements, because this is a digital transformation age that we live in. People are always changing all the time.
That's the content we have time for in this episode. You'll want to be sure you check back for the next one where we finish our conversation with Viv Philips. Lots of great stuff to come. It's easiest to remember to do that if you subscribe to the podcast, and then you'll get that episode as soon as it's posted. Hey, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Winning Platform Owner Podcast.